All right, being 7 o'clock on June 2nd, 2021, I'd like to call to order the Charlton Planning Board meeting for tonight. First up, we have an informational discussion with Blue Water Property Group, which is a developer for 53 Sturbridge Road project, and this is just information discussion.
Right, the Blue Water Group wanted to bring us up to speed as far as where they're at with the project. They now have a prospective tenant, which you may or may not heard of from the Board of Selectmen meeting last night. And they're also trying to make sure that they submit any information with the application that the board may want to see during the application process. So this is not a public hearing by any means, but if the board feels that there's something that is useful in the application process so that they are able to provide everything that, you know, as completely as they can for the board in time of submitting during the application process, now given the opportunity just for the board to speak. Alicia also just joined too, so I'll turn it to over to Alex Escamilla. Sorry, Alex, if I pronounced you.
Escamilla. I know.
Okay. Sorry.
There's been a lot of butchering, but I will take it. It's normal. So yeah, Alex Escamilla. It's how you say it. So thank you, Randy, and thank you to this board for hearing us. I realize you guys have an agenda, so we'll try to keep it brief. First of all, thank you to everyone during the height change process. We really appreciate all the insight this board provided, but we're actually really excited here to talk not about a hypothetical zoning change to the BEP zone, but to take this opportunity to do for this board what we were able to do with the Board of Selectmen, which is introduce as a courtesy to this board the details of the project at hand that we are proposing to bring to Charlton. So we've prepared a very brief presentation that kind of hits the high points that is more specific, actually very specific to this project. And as Randy said, want to hear from you about how we can make this project a success in the town of Charlton. So with that, I'm going to breeze through this quickly and hope that we can answer any other questions you might have. I have a number of details available if this board wants to speak to them. So as we know, we're at the Kozowski property bound by Route 20 and Southbridge Road. This is the overall location as well as the property line in question. We're pleased to introduce to this board the full project team, so you're aware of who you will be hearing from over the next coming months. As we've said before, the developer of this project is Bay Colony Properties, which is Bill Locke here, and you see him and will continue to see him, and a joint venture with our firm, Blue Water Property Group, which is led by John DeCola, the principal of the firm, myself, and the head of development for Blue Water. And we will have two project managers that will be working with various commissions here and boards, Josh Garofano, who's a construction and pre-development manager, as well as Brian Kelly, who's a project manager with Blue Water. As we said yesterday with the Board of Selectmen, the potential end user for this specific property is Amazon. And the facility type that we're going to be introducing is what's called an Amazon robotic sort. This is the first touch in the e-commerce logistic network in Amazon's portfolio. And the primary type of product that comes in and out of this building is the type of products that you would be able to find in an airport security bin. So usually high throughput items, you know, the things that get bought and sold rather quickly and fit within that size. We have a wonderful project team, most of whom you know from some of the larger projects on the up the street. We're working with Langen on site civil engineering, as well as our overall MIPA process, Van Ness for traffic engineering, BL companies for our structural MEP and architecture. Fletcher Tilton is Mark Donahue, who you know from as our land use attorney, and we work with a group called Harrington on life safety and fire suppression systems. So these are folks that you're going to see, in detail over the life of this approval process. Just to remind, just speaking about the type of building, because again, we want to be very transparent and open about what's happening at the actual project in the building we're proposing. As I said, this is a high volume fulfillment, multi-story building that is a first touch e-commerce facility that is the first touch in a logistics network. So that means product is coming in from direct suppliers. For instance, would take Nike. Nike makes a shoe. The shoe comes in on an 18-wheeler, gets dropped and stored at the facility where it is picked and packed by Amazon associates working on the floor, and then taken outbound on an 18-wheeler to another sortation facility that is smaller. From there, it gets distributed to the consumer. So again, this is first touch. This is not a place where outbound deliveries go direct to consumer. It's where products are shipped, stored, picked, and packed, and put outbound to a smaller sortable facility elsewhere in the logistics network. The building operates as both a warehouse and a distribution facility. This is what requires that height. So when products do come through, they are brought to the upper levels for storage and picked as they're purchased online. Usually these buildings are high quality building materials, precast concrete with glazing system, fully conditioned to varying degrees depending on where you are, in order to support a high tech fulfillment center and material handling. The building footprint itself is about 634,000 square feet, but includes, as we've said, smaller multi-level footprints above that to reach to the height, and that's about 4.5 stories of storage in addition to the footprint. As we've said before, the benefits to the town are great. There's good, high quality jobs here starting at $15 an hour minimum, and 10% of the jobs, over 1,000 of these jobs, are usually managerial or technical operational. This represents a meaningful investment into the town of Charlton that will have a space increase. We've estimated on average $2.4 million over the first 10 years, as well as ancillary benefits to the town through community impact, local patronage, procurement, local jobs, et cetera, through the construction and beyond. So that the folks can understand what this facility looks like. This is a conceptual rendering of this prototype building, the Amazon robotic sortable. As you can see, you kind of have this entrance and office bump out here with upper levels here where the storage happens. And I'll show you kind of a floor plan, but the employee parking is typically out here with truck docks on either side here. This is an overview conceptual site plan of this proposed project. As you can see, the building is quite set back in the center at that 634,000 square foot footprint. The upper levels kind of come in a little bit more here. So the 634 is the largest footprint. There's about 1,200 parking spaces to accommodate the jobs that we explained before in shifts. Inbound trucking happens at this level. Outbound gets loaded here and backed out. We have entrances contemplated at both Route 169 and Route 20, which will be part of a MassDOT study area, including improvements to both roads. We do qualify for a signal warrant at Route 20, which would help with the flow of traffic and create the dedicated lanes for turning in and out. Route 169 will truly be a secondary access. This is mostly for the purpose of employees going in and out and to support some peak capacity during the high season. But most of the traffic is going to be going out, especially the truck traffic out of Route 20, which naturally wants to head westbound back to 84 and 90. That's kind of what this describes. Again, most of the truck traffic is going to be moving back towards this the Sturbridge intersection to 90 and 84. But obviously the employees represent a meaningful amount of the traffic. It's over 90% is actually just employee traffic, which will be headed out depending on where people live, come in and out of normal. We've talked a lot about height in this project. We still do plan to advance and detail out the visual studies as part of our site plan application, and are in the process of taking the visual view corridor studies and screening studies to the next level for the purposes of this application. And these are the main sight lines that we plan to include in that application, but we would be certainly interested in hearing this board's feedback on that. And then overall, this is kind of an overall timeline for our near term and overall schedule. We did submit our package to MIPA. We're doing a full MIPA process here. This was an ENF. It's kind of a moment in time application in order to start the clock there and get the scoping underway so that we can continue and do much more detailed analysis with MIPA throughout that process. Same with MassDOT. We were able to make the similar introduction yesterday with the Board of Selectmen in order to introduce again the operator, which was a big concern there and one that we've been really wanting to talk about for a while, but have been able to cross that boundary. Our Conservation Commission hearing for the ANRAD is happening as we speak. We had a great walkthrough with Angela this morning and plan to advance that, simultaneous to the site plan application. We have what's called a performance-based design kickoff with the fire department and the building inspector, which is when members of the Amazon team come with the fire department and building inspector, walk them through a modeled version of this building to introduce how life safety and egress works and get their buy-in on how the fire suppression and safety at the site works. It's a really important meeting, and we'll kick off a longer process with that group specifically to talk about safety. And we hope to have our site plan submission before June 23rd. We're targeting around June 17th right now for our site plan application submission, with the hope of being at the first planning board hearing. So overall, we hope to have our site plan approval in hand by the end of October. MIPA would be happening in December, MassDOT spring of next year, and begin construction in March of next year. And that's basically how it works. So with that, I will open it up to questions and clarifications, and really we look forward to having a collaborative process with this board.
Hi, Alex. I just happened to notice, and I'm sure you're aware of it, but I just want to point out, you will submit the special permit application at the same time as the site plan submission. Typically, they're done.
Yeah, sorry, that's exactly what
that's no problem.
Sorry, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Alex, is this presentation something that you'd be willing to let us post to the Charlton Planning Board website? Because I've had a bunch of people asking me about the slides that were presented last night, and I had posted some and then took them down for fear that it was proprietary. And I wasn't sure if that's something that you would allow us to put, just this presentation, so people have a sense of what and when is happening.
I think that should be okay. John, do you have an opinion on that? I don't see, this is a publicly recorded meeting, so.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. And a lot of these slides are, reflective of slides that have already been posted. So we'd be completely comfortable with that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just for everyone's, I would be unable to post it till Monday, but I could post it on Monday on the planning board website.
Alex Escamilla, this is Bill.
Thank you. That was excellent pronunciation.
Is that good?
Thank you for getting it right. Better than me.
Regarding the truck, so you said this is one of the first operations in the process, and the building is obviously built for tractor trailer size vehicles. Are these vehicles are owned by Amazon, and the drivers are first order employees of Amazon?
I would have to check on that exactly, but it is my understanding. So inbound trucks are from suppliers, right? So that would not be an Amazon truck. And then the outbound truck usually has the blue kind of logo on it, but I believe it is a contract. But I can check on that.
So the outbound, are you, I'm imagining the Sprinter size vans? like
No,
those
it's
would
a
be
very important clarification. This is not an what's called a last mile facility. This is not a van outbound project. This is only tractor trailers coming in from suppliers and going out to other sortable delivery stations or facilities where they are then sorted by address and then delivered to the consumer. So this is not a Sprinter van facility.
Right,
Sorry,
so
sometimes
outbound
I'm
is
saying
tractor
that here.
trailers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
outbound tractor trailers, inbound tractor trailers.
And it's important as part of the traffic analysis. It is important to note. So the local road network is not something that would be accessed by trucks. The trucks are really looking to make their way to the highway and then go on to the next facility that is within the Amazon network. So that and the trucker is really looking to use just a main road connection to a highway and would not want to get caught in at a traffic, least amount of traffic lights that they can envision.
Sure. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alex, how you doing?
Hi.
Good. First thing I'd say is, with the zoning change, just to make it clear that we want to make sure that you get the approval from the Attorney General. So I don't know if your team would like reach out to check in on that as far as the timing for them, for the turnaround for the approval on that.
Yep.
Also, for any applicant that does a site plan, the best thing is usually for your engineer to make an appointment and sit down with Mike Andre from Graves Engineering, go over any bullet points, what would help more the applicant than anything on any project, but what Mike looks for when he reviews the site plan, or checks and balances. And then also I see you guys meeting with the fire department, which is great. That helps as well to be one of the sign-offs. And have you guys even done anything for MassDOT as far as submission? Because they can usually be a holdup, and sometimes they can alter entry and entrance to a project, where we saw it with down in Charlton City with the marijuana retail.
So we have had a preliminary kickoff with MassDOT. They have given us the indication that they're in line with the scope that we proposed. And Jeff Dirk from our traffic engineer can speak to this, but it is my understanding what we said to the Board of Selectmen also last night, that the scope review has actually gone to the Boston office for review, which is actually positive because it's something that has to happen at the MIPA level anyway. And what I will also say about these projects is that MassDOT and the state are looking at these facilities and Amazon type facilities holistically across the state, which is good because it's not reinventing the wheel or explaining these very, very, new facilities to them from scratch. So, we think we do have a leg up because they understand how they work. And in fact, our scoping is going to be based on data that the DOT has established for Amazon.
Perfect. All right, I just want to try and make it on any applicant.
Yeah, it's always it's a great comment, and we've definitely gotten the conversation started, and we expect it to be a long lead. That said, we are happy that our partner here has taken the necessary steps to have a holistic conversation.
Just a question, because I know you have a similar type project in North Andover, I believe that you're involved in.
We're not involved in that project.
Oh, you were not
to
involved.
clarify, no.
Okay, never mind. It's
Yeah.
similar type facility, but I didn't know who was actually on a state road or anything, but okay.
Yeah, it's a different development team.
Okay.
They work with people.
And
Anyone else? Go ahead.
because of the type of project it is, that, we typically ask for like a community impact study on this because of the impact of this type of project on the town of Charlton. So I would assume that would be supplied with the application as well. You may not have
Yeah.
it with the, you may not have it with the initial submission, but
Yes, we are
I-
planning to do both a fiscal and community impact
Right.
analysis, but you're correct, Randy, it probably won't be in the first submission, but it will follow as supplement.
Okay.
Does anyone else from the board have a question? John or Jean?
Through the chair, Ross.
Go right ahead, John. Yeah.
Is there a reason why the building is orientated that way?
John Perry, I would let you sort of say this, but I know that we studied the building in multiple orientations in terms of fitting through the topography.
We did, it's kind of a big puzzle piece, and that's how we got it to fit the parking, all the employee parking. Ideally, we'd have more employee parking, more in like the front, the top kind of part of the page there. We were able to kind of split it, in two and keep the parking as close to the building as possible. And then we need to segregate the truck parking. So it's just, it's like I said, it's kind of a puzzle piece, and that was the best layout that we were able to come up with.
And we have several site constraints here, which I'm sure John can talk to you about, but we have a fair amount of topography here, some wetlands that we have to work around, and some grading for safety that's required both for the vehicles driving on the site, and then, as John mentioned, the separation of cars from trucks for safety purposes.
One of the most important things to note, sorry to interrupt, Alex, is that if you look at the main access point on Route 20 and how we're kind of snaking that road, up and around, we're trying to get as much length on that as we can, because we have a fairly big hill to climb there. So in where we have that kind of point touching Route 20 is about as far west as we'd want to go, because then we get into the curve of the road. We're actually going to be shifting it a little bit more east in our final plan to put it there more along the straightaway, so it helps with our sight lines and stopping sight distances. But the reason I'm mentioning that is we wouldn't, if we were going to flip the building, we would likely have to have the truck parking on the other side. We'd likely have to have that point more on the curve of the road in order to reverse the layout and have that still, snaked access way to get the same, length and height on it. So that was really kind of what drove that. One of the things that drove it.
Just that I would think that would be the louder side of the building with the truck traffic going in and out. And we have a nature sanctuary right there. And then we have a brewery that uses a lot of their outside space for activities. So I didn't know if there's, just looking at it there, it seems like maybe that side and the south side would be the noisier sides of the building.
Well, we are conducting a sound study too, so I think that's a good, point that we'll make sure we focus on.
Yeah, I mean, John, it was absolutely a consideration we did when laying it out, and kind of like we said before, John, it's a puzzle piece, and with site safety, routing, grading, all the factors, fitting everything in, this really was the orientation. But to John Perry's point, I mean, we're going to be looking at berming, screening, landscaping, acoustic, right, make sure that we're sensitive neighbors.
So you are doing some type of noise study for the project? We have a similar project where it was brought up by a concerned resident about, because these typically are 24 hours, and that the resident had brought up a point about trucks backing up and the backup alarm. So of how they, how much they were going to hear from their home. So
Yeah, typically projects require an acoustic study of this size, and we'll be performing it to make sure that we're compliant with all the Mass DEP regulations.
And just as it relates to that, I'll just add, we are very aware of Cape and Hill and the need to be very sensitive about how this project interacts with that site, so that the building operations fit in well with what is happening between the two properties. And we'll be looking at that very closely in terms of screening, in terms of how those sight lines work from that property. As it relates to the acoustics, there have been advances. People have brought up the noise, the concern about a truck backing up and the beeping. There's modern technology now that has been brought into operations like this. So trucks they have what they call shushers, which when the trucks back up, that is a much greater diminished noise element than what most of us may be associated with it going back 10 or 20 years. So there's a lot that goes into the thought process here. If we could flip the building, we would, for this reason and several others. But there are other limiting conditions that dictate that we won't be able to.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Ross, this is Jean, and I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
I think I may have misunderstood something. Did you say that the 90% of the traffic was going to be employee traffic?
Yeah. It's about 10% is trucks, and the other 90%. I mean, Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's kind of what we're working with based on the latest MassDOT scoping.
Yeah, it's on a daily basis, it's roughly about 14%. And then on the peak hours, it's somewhere around 2%. So it's a pretty, over the daily basis, it's about 14%.
14% employee traffic. Is that what you're saying?
Of truck traffic. The balance of it is employee traffic. So the bulk of the traffic is employee traffic.
Okay. And you mentioned something about improvements to Route 169 and 20. Can you expand on that a little bit, maybe?
Sure. Jeff, do you want to walk through that?
So yes, so there's a series of improvements that would take place. The first is, whether you want to call it an improvement or not, is at the access into the property itself. So as Alex had mentioned, the plan is that we'll be installing a traffic signal at that intersection. It makes sense, as you might imagine, just given the fact that as Alex has said, in this case, at that intersection, that's about 90% of the traffic. All traffic is going through this intersection. All of the truck traffic will go through this intersection, and the majority, if not almost exclusively, the employee traffic. So the signal allows us to process that traffic much more efficiently. And then you see, of course, what you'd expect is left turn lanes to come in if you're coming from the Charlton City side, and then a right turn lane for the trucks primarily that are coming from the 84 side. So that, the intent of that really is that if you're not going to this warehouse, there's nothing stopping the flow of traffic along Route 20 because they're in their own travel lanes. So that, if you want to call it an improvement, that's what we're doing at the access in from Route 20, which is the primary access. There'll be additional improvements along Route 20, and primarily they'll be focused in the Charlton City area. We know, as I'm sure you're very well aware, between Route 169 and going to Stafford Street, Carpenter Hill Road, in that area, that's a section of Route 20 that it's kind of had improvements on either side, but that middle section there, where the town has experienced some development, really has had some safety improvements, but not really looking at, is there an ability to move traffic through there safely and more efficiently. And so we'll be looking at, opportunities to implement some improvements there. And I think importantly is looking at pedestrian and bicycle connectivity across Route 20 for the neighborhood areas, as well as along Route 20, because there's sidewalks, but they don't really extend beyond the Charlton City area, and making sure that those connections are available, and not only along Route 20, but for crossing Route 20 in a safe manner. So, we really see a focused effort on some improvements there, because with all the development that's taking place in town on, most of it certainly in Charlton City, but also towards the Sturbridge area, that section of Charlton City and Route 20 in particular has been an area that has not really had improvements like other portions of the corridor. So we do see that, there is going to be a desire line and a need to make some improvements there that we'll be advancing and looking at as a part of this project.
All right, Gene, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but I did have one other question. Where the building is going to be located, did you know what the elevation is at that point?
John, where are we landing on our finished floor elevation? I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're landing right around 748. And the existing elevation is 775.
So you're anticipating a big cut on the hill to level it off.
Yeah, so exactly. The hill is, we're trying to balance the site from an earthwork standpoint, so the hill is going to be generally cut down by, was that 25, 30 feet, and kind of the more northeastern side is going to be filled in a bit. And then the southwestern edge is going to be, a little bit of a cut over there. So we're turning a mound into a little bit more of a flatter area, but trying to work with the natural topography as well. And it actually, the way we have it graded now has allowed us to make some really nice landscape berms on that Cape and hillside. So I think that'll be a really good thing.
The chair,
Go right ahead, John.
seeing as, so if you're 755 now, your floor is 745, is the building gonna itself be 110 feet? Have you come up with the final number on that height for the building?
John,
The building is 100 feet.
100.
We had asked for the 110 because depending on how the definition is written, it's taken from the average grade around the facility, and the truck loading bays are obviously 4 feet lower than the finished floor elevation. So there's a couple of kind of up and downs around the building. But the building height from the first floor to the roof is 100 feet.
So the elevation at the top of the building would be 850 feet right now, give or take a few feet, right?
Correct.
Would it be possible to get a crane for a day or something to just mark that elevation and just have it put up there so the townspeople can see what that would look like? I mean, it's not out of the realm of, I know solar sites, when we're building solar sites and the neighbors want to see how tall, they have a flag day where they're able to drive by the facility just to see what the actual look of that height would be.
It's a good suggestion, John. Let me, if you don't mind, I'd like to get back to you about it, just in terms of the feasibility and timeline. We had talked about doing a balloon study and are doing a pretty complex building modeling based on the actual topography. So we're in the process of putting the whole building into a model that's based on the actual elevations. So as we advance the site studies that we've talked about, that's kind of the next level. But we've talked about doing a balloon study or something like this. So if hearing that is good feedback, and I would like to your permission to consider.
Thank you. All right, is there anything else? Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you, Alex, John, Mark, John, Bill, Jeff. If I missed anyone, I apologize. Thank you for all the information and the time you took out to present the planning board with the slideshow and provide all the information that you have.
Actually, just before they go, if you could forward me whatever slide information you have, and I could post it on the planning board website if everybody would like me to, as Alicia had indicated earlier.
No problem.
Yeah.
If I might, just before we go, I think by the filing, we're looking at trying to make your July 14th meeting. Does that present any difficulties for any planning board members as far as scheduling a vacation or anything else?
I know I don't have anything in August. Any other board member want to speak up?
I'm good.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate it.
John Smith, you good?
Is Bill going to Canada, driving through Canada next, William? I'm good also.
He can go to the meetings on the road, though. He's already done that.
Just to fill everyone in, Bill did the cross-country trip a few months back.
Good to be back home.
Great.
All right, thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for carving out
Thank you
time
for
for
your
us.
time, and we're excited to work with you on
Thank
this
you.
project. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Being 7:37, move to our next agenda item. We got the Blair Builders. We need to take action on the Curtis Hill Road preliminary subdivision plan.
Yeah, you took action to accept the plan, but you actually, we didn't take a formal vote on the approval of the preliminary subdivision, so we just like to have it done as a formal vote so that we make sure it's done legally, properly.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the Blair Builders Curtis Hill Estates road preliminary subdivision plan?
Make a motion to approve the Curtis Hill Estates preliminary subdivision plan.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor, Gene Vincent,
Aye.
John Smith,
Aye.
Bill Fontaine,
Aye.
Ross Mansky, aye. All right, moving on to our 7:20 zoning bylaw diagnostic review workshop with consultant Gabe Trevor. I don't see Gabe here on the call, but
I actually spoke to Gabe today, and he is going to be on the call tonight, but I said that if everybody received I had amended the bylaws based on our last workshop. Everything that I had amended is highlighted in red. And then he just requested we continue to move forward on the use table as far as any more amendments that he would put together. And then we anticipate that we could go over anything at our next meeting.
all right. So it's just the changes that were made that we decided to make on that you emailed to us, Randy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything that's highlighted in red is the changes that the board recommended as far as changing, whether it's a Y, P, or SP. We got to the point, we're done we get down to the point of number 5 business uses. That's where we left off.
Yep.
Randy, when did you send that?
Jane actually sent it out today with the
Oh, it's
agenda.
Jane. Okay.
Yeah.
It was this morning.
Randy, does Gabe Trevor have any comments, or all of the comments in here are ours and yours?
The comments that are in the right-hand column are actually the comments not from Gabe, but from Ron Barron before him, which Gabe's gone over those comments. But the comments that are in the right-hand block in the gray are the comments from CMRPC.
RB is not Randy Benson, it's Ron something.
Yeah, Ron
Yeah.
Barron.
Monbury, yeah, okay. Got it.
So where we were starting off with the business uses in retail establishments. And the first one's the different types of retail establishments with square footage of 20,000 feet, less than 20,000 square feet of gross building area. And when I had reviewed this, the one thing that had crossed my mind based on some of our previous discussions and everything is if we were going to allow some of these, say, if it is in the BEP district and you allowed smaller businesses such as coffee shops or delicatessens or that type of business in the BEP, right now it has it as a no. If it was changed to, say, possibly a special permit, then given the right circumstances and the right type of development, if it was, say, an office park where they had also some type sort of different retail in there, particularly food, coffee shops and everything, it might be something the board would want to consider, because right now, the way the bylaw is written, it's not permitted. So it's something that might be considered either a permitted use or done as a special permit, so the board would have the ability to say it could be done, in a particular circumstances. If the circumstances were correct, then it would be appropriate use.
Now, these are the buildings less than 20,000 square feet, right?
Correct. So that's like be like the mom and pop convenience store, coffee shop, typical places like that, bakery.
Yeah, I mean, why would, I can't, might as well having it, besides having it as a hard no, make it a special permit.
Right. Well, that's my opinion, that it would, the circumstances where it'd be a good addition to whatever development's going on.
I agree with that, Randy. That's a good idea. In case somebody wants to put something in there and benefit their employees or something.
And I think the same thing in the over 20,000 square feet too, in the BEP. That'd be a hard no if you're not allowed in IG.
Yeah, I noticed they had made a comment about why not, what's the argument for the larger in the village business district? We don't have too many places that could accommodate that big a building in the village district. So I agree with leaving it, the smaller types of establishment for the village business district, but a larger type retail, I don't know if that would be appropriate in that district.
Yeah. The only spot in village you could do it would be it's on home.
What's
Overlook.
that?
Only spot you could do that in village district would be the Overlook, right? They're in village district, aren't they? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
Something that size.
yeah, but this is only for retail, for the, say a large supermarket or a Target store or something like that, which I don't even know if we have a property that could accommodate something like that in the village district or would want to.
Right. It really doesn't even make sense. Should it be an N?
Yeah,
Then make the BEP of SP from an N?
well, I mean, in the village district, yeah, I honestly, I don't, unless anybody has any opinion on that, you know, we allow for smaller retail, but a large retail in the village business is, I don't, aside from not even really having a location for it, I don't know if it would be appropriate for it. There's the whole idea of the village district to keep it more of the village feeling, and plopping a large retail establishment in there probably wouldn't be the appropriate thing to do. So maybe the village district should be a no rather than the SP.
And should the N be switched on BEP and add over 20,000 square foot retail establishment?
Yeah, I mean, there might be opportunities for that where if they did a mixed retail, residential or whatever, if it's a large enough parcel of land, it might work.
Yeah.
And it gives people more of an opportunity. You know, it doesn't limit the type of development that can be on there because they might get one type of development versus another. So it gives them an opportunity to try to do more. It's still through the special permit process, so the board would be able to decide if it's appropriate for that parcel.
Or even if it's a multi-tenant retail operation, over 20,000 square feet.
Right, which actually might not be a bad idea if it was, you know, somebody came up with that.
Right.
Yeah, through the chair, that would be my comment too. It, like, I don't know if the whole retail establishment would be 20,000. The building may be, but maybe there's just a chunk of a small retail, you know, in a corner of the building, a two-story building or something. That's why I would think even in the village district, keep it as a special permit. The retail part of it may be small, the building may be bigger, but you know, you could allow that in a small chunk of a building in village district. And I would add special permit in the BEP also for over 20,000 square feet.
I see that Ron made a comment on the next item down, the auction galleries, how right now in CB, auction galleries is allowed by right, is a Y.
Right.
Come to change it to SP in the residential district. So
Actually, we had an unusual request last year. Massachusetts Building Commission's on, and there was a little bit of a hang up of how it was auto auction and trying to be sold as an auction gallery, which is actually, if you look at their this chart currently, it's permitted with a site plan, which where they were proposing it was not a good spot, you know, in our opinion. But on the same note, you know, then the question came down to what is considered an auction gallery. But the point is that at the very least, you know, in some of these the residential districts, I have to agree that it should be an SP, because maybe there's a place that it would work, but there's a lot of places that it would not be a good idea. And it depends on what the auction gallery is too.
Yeah, but
Should we address what that should be? Should we redefine an auction gallery? Put some parameters on that verbiage?
I think we should, because that was the whole part of the discussion. One part of the discussion we're having, what is an auction gallery? And you know, they were trying to sell the auto auction under the premise of being an auction gallery, and fortunately Kurt didn't agree with that and they didn't push it. So but I think it would be wise for us to redefine that so that, you know, it's meant for certain types of auctions, you know, the typical like art auction or things like that versus, you know, just any type of auction. So
non-automotive.
Right, or even equipment, you know, they have places where they're doing industrial equipment and everything. So I'll ask Gabe if he has any like definition he might have through another town that might be a more workable solution to that.
yeah, it makes it black and white as far as this.
As much as black and white gets.
Right?
I would say that when you guys get done with your part of the exercise, then what you think, I would be very happy to look at the proposed table once it's done and make comments on the difficulty or the potential workarounds to what you thought you said.
Gotcha.
And I think also I'm going to look at some of the things in our definition. We have a rather short list of definitions. And we often, like an auction gallery, know what we think it is, right? I mean, we all have a picture in our head right now, and lacking a concise definition. You know, the same thing, motor vehicle. You know, we have that phrase in our, well, okay, does that mean it has to have a motor? Or is it towed with something that has a motor? So, you know, there are these areas that, because the definition is lacking, it makes some enforcement actions or some interpretations difficult. So I will eventually propose that. I do have a big book that's only one edition that was ever published, which was the zoning bylaw or zoning word definitions that I found in the planning board office, and I have it, so we may look to that. It was only published once, but it's quite extensive. So I may be asking for some of those kind of potential changes as we work through the process.
All right, perfect.
Maybe I think we should also ask our consultant. That's what we're getting paid for, and that's he can get some up to date. I don't know when Kurt's book was published, not to diminish your book, Kurt, but he could. But and sometimes we run into just the modern term or the modern connotation of the word too. So I'm sure Kurt knows all about that also. So
every day is a learning experience.
Does anybody have an opinion about some of these other comments down here? Because they had, again, this is kind of, the definition in is not defined at all. This is another definition where, yes, an inn might be a more appropriate use than, say, a hotel motel, you know, in certain locations. So, but by, again, adding the definition of inn into the bylaw probably be useful to, so you could differentiate between a hotel motel and an inn. Because they're basically talking about that a hotel motel may not be appropriate in the village zone, but an inn could be.
Yeah, I was just looking back at our definitions and there's only 2 pages, 2.5 pages. of them, so.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot, which makes Kurt's life difficult sometimes.
Hmm.
So the rule is that unless you find some definition elsewhere by statute or by case law, is that you use the common, Merriam-Webster's definition of the word, and sometimes that's quite broad too. So.
But on the flip side, by not making it too specific, it allows the definitions to move with the times. And I have to say that that's probably helped us to some degree, although it can hold us on others. But I like the idea of leaving the definitions broad, because to the Merriam-Webster point of view, those do get updated every year. And if we're just going on the general definition, well, then by not putting a specific definition in place, we can adjust and won't have to be redoing this every 5 years.
Oh, that is, a valid point. There are just some certain things. I could not differentiate between an inn, a motel, or a hotel.
I couldn't either.
They're all the same thing to me. So why do we have them?
Actually, an inn is when you can serve alcohol on all floors of the establishment. That's one of the caveats of having an innkeeper's license, which is a very valuable license to have, actually. So.
Well, see, today is complete.
I was just going to say, I would have never known that.
I have a question. John, how did you know that?
I need
Jeopardy.
experience. I have a cousin that runs an inn, actually, in a town to the west of us, to the east of us, and it's a very valuable license to have. So, and that's what a hotel needs or a motel needs, is an innkeeper's license. So if they're serving alcohol, they can bring it up all floors of the rooms and such. So it's a much different license than just a restaurant license. So.
But if, say, you owned the Marriott that didn't have a restaurant attached to it, you wouldn't need the innkeeper's license because there's no alcohol, correct?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Not that I anticipate ever needing that information, but I'm just curious.
It just makes it more valuable for the people that stay. I mean, that's probably the caveat. So.
Well, here's a question here, because the way this is in the bylaws now, the hotel and motel and motor courts are separated out, but inn and hotels are together. Should they be separated so that, there would be a separate line for where hotels permitted and then another separate line for where inns are permitted? Would that be
seems to make
more
more
appropriate?
sense.
What's that?
I would
Yeah.
agree with that, Randy, because if one can serve alcohol and one can't, well, those are two distinctions.
My question is how does that play into the licensing, the alcoholic beverage and licensing scheme? Are we,
Well, I don't even know how many in license do the town of, does Charlton have? Do
I
they
don't
have
think
any?
we have any.
Yeah.
We can take that right off the board.
Well, actually, we have a nice old inn. The Ryder Tavern probably has that way back in the day, right?
Unless it was built when we were dry.
No, there was a bar. There's a bar in there.
Yeah.
There's a bar. I know there is.
I mean, we're getting a little lost in the weeds, but
Sorry.
no.
But I mean, a hotel could have a restaurant in it with an alcohol license, right? And that wouldn't be considered an inn because the inn's all floors. Is that correct,
Yes.
Don?
Yeah.
Okay.
But why wouldn't we just use mass general laws? I mean, they have pages of definitions.
Oh, I'm-
And I know they specify the difference between a motel and an inn.
Well, no, I agree with that we use that for the definition part. I'm just separating out here because in our use table, hotel and inns are like in this particular case, hotel and inns are both permitted with site plan and neighborhood business, village business, you know, community business. So maybe some of them you want to allow a hotel, but some of you only want to allow an inn. So that's something that we'll have to determine.
I just wouldn't want to spend a bunch of time for the town of Charlton planning board to start defining terms. Like I think that's already been done in MGL and just reference to
Well,
that.
I'm making notes to myself here, basically to look things up. So.
Hey, you guys have fun. I'm going to check in on the conservation meeting.
Thanks, Kurt.
All right.
See you, Kurt.
Bye.
If we go to the next page, the motel and motor courts, that's still under the same premise of where it's actually the motel and motor course is actually, I think, done well in this category. And unless you consider right now, it's like we would allow a hotel in the BEP, but it says a motel would not be allowed. And it comes down to the definition again. What's the difference between, I mean, I picture a motel, one level, hotel, multiple stories, but I have to see what the definition of that is.
Anyone have a problem with the drive? On the personal consumer services, being the Ys, it's just going by what Ron Barron made the comment as far as them being a Y in the RSE, neighborhood business village, and CD, that's just really allowed by right. We usually see it for the laundromat. I mean, I know we have one laundromat in town, Charlotte City.
I do have a question on that.
Yeah.
Am I reading this correctly? That ATMs are not allowed in the village district?
Which one's that under, Alicia?
Services, it's dropped down a little bit and it's R, services most notably known as automatic teller machine, whether freestanding or accessory. And if I'm reading this correctly and it's no under village, I want to point out that there are two a credit union and a bank in the village district that both have ATMs.
Yeah, I think that should be permitted. I mean, typical, the secondary to, I mean, the gas stations many times have a standalone, the convenience stores have a standalone ATM inside them and everything. I think it should be done with a P,
I certainly agree, because banks were one of the things when this whole zoning, when the village district first came about, banks, credit unions, financial institutions were one of the things that were encouraged in the village district. And any bank or credit union is going to, most banks or credit unions, excuse me, are going to have ATMs associated with them. And I would say that that should definitely be a P versus an N, because even your gas stations, most of them in town have standalone ATMs. And I think the Dunkin's, and correct me, the Dunkin/liquor store down there across from the post office, I thought they had an ATM, although I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, but many of those places do. So.
Charlton Food Mart has an ATM. I mean, why not just remove that altogether?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like, well, yeah, a drive, a drive up ATM is a different thing.
I might add that the credit union in the village district has a drive-up ATM.
Yeah.
So eliminate R.
Well, it seems like it's not being followed or enforced. Anyway.
We were there before the village district was so labeled. And I'm just curious how,
Right.
because there's always been an ATM there, how that came through. Maybe nobody noticed. And again, not to get lost in the weeds, but I would eliminate that as a permitted use just because there's already at least 2, if not 3 there.
So do you think they better off to be a Y? I mean, typically an ATM machine's like if an existing, like Ted decided to put an ATM machine in, I think that's a little over the top for requesting a site plan for, it's just a machine sitting in a store,
Correct.
I think it may be more appropriate to be a Y, because
Yes.
a bank's, the ATM's gonna be secondary to them building a bank, so,
Yes.
so
Yes.
maybe it's more appropriate for them to be Ys, and I mean, half the places already have them, and they're so insignificant in the realm of the, store or project.
That's correct. Now, to your point, Bill, a drive-up ATM is going to have lighting, it's going to have additional traffic, it's going to have, but in a village or anything in the business zones, I don't see that as an issue at all. Obviously, agriculture, R40, RSE, no. But in the village district on up, it should be permitted.
Right, and I mean, if somebody was to build a new bank, that's done with the site plan anyway, so, the drive up ATM would be
Correct.
at the time of the application, so,
Yeah, they would not put that in after the fact.
right.
I'm all about simplification. I just eliminate R.
Yeah. Good idea.
I would agree.
Right, eliminate, like, don't even have it in there?
No.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, what are the consequences? So someone wants to put an ATM up in agricultural district. I mean, it would have to be within some existing business, and then it would be some ancillary use. It would just be like a vending machine.
Right, like if they put it at golf course or something, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're pretty well regulated anyway from a power much higher than us. In the old days, you could pretty much put one anywhere, but nowadays it takes quite a bit to get an ATM, and if you're not a certified financial institution.
Yes, it was really, based on that, there's really no need to have one.
And the only consequence I can think of is someone tries to put in a bank and they say, oh, it's not a bank, this is an ATM machine. The whole building is an ATM machine. Or something, I don't know. I can't.
Well, I mean, if we left if we left it and took the ATM machine definition out, the closest thing we would look at would be bank. It's like, okay, so again, if somebody wanted to do that, say they just had a walk-up ATM location and no bank to go with it, we'd still have to look under it as a bank because, ATM has multiple uses, not only just withdrawing money, but deposits, other services. So we would look in at a bank. So if somebody tried to do that, Bill, it would end up, being a site plan.
I would
Right.
agree.
To
And the
Alicia's-
other most,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was just say to Alicia's point, they're highly regulated, so they can't, nobody can just do it anywhere, you know?
No. No, the only other most common places you're gonna find ATMs are at the school pickup points where all the kids think their parents are standalone walking ATMs, but otherwise they are heavily, heavily regulated.
Even after school. They just ask for more when they become adults.
We don't have anything to look forward to?
Yeah, no. The problems just get bigger.
More expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
Just before we get off this page, does anybody have an issue with, the funeral homes on the bottom? The only thing that he made a comment about is in the community business zone, about whether it was a Y, and whether it should be a site plan because they're parking extensive. That might not be a bad idea, just to make it a P, not a, I wouldn't make it a special permit, but because of the parking that can go along with a funeral home to possibly make it a P, you know, instead of a Y. I don't want to make it any more complicated than it is, but there is a point about the amount of parking that goes with it.
yeah. I do a P only because of the parking and traffic, and they do have a service.
Yeah. On the next one we move to is the marijuana uses, which a lot of this has actually been recently addressed and updated with the bylaws. So I don't know if there's anything we actually want to do with this or just leave it, you know, because it's been gone over in recent years.
Pretty fresh, so
I
Yeah.
agree.
the adjustment.
At this point, I wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel considering we just did this.
Yeah.
And particularly where we have still litigation going on, it's better off to not start changing things.
Agreed.
I don't see a marijuana growing facility definition here, though.
Well,
Or am I missing it, or is that
no,
purposely not agricultural or something?
well, that's where it became an issue before, and where at a prior meeting we had talked about the size of greenhouses. That's where it fell under. Was it floriculture? You know, yeah. So that
Okay.
limited the size of greenhouses, which specifically address that particular problem. So it is allowed in certain places, but it's limited in size.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah. Got it.
And I do think that the communication towers and wireless facilities, that just be left well enough alone for now too. I mean, we really don't get them that often, you know, usually using existing facilities at this point. You know, I actually, this in anticipation, and I don't know, you know, in anticipation of some of the projects that are coming along. When I'm looking at the bottom of the page where it has bus or railroad transport passenger terminals, right now it's in the BEP, it's a special permit. In the IG, it's just a site plan. Would it be, given the types of facilities coming in, or do you think it's not really much of an issue that we, should we make it a special permit in the IG district? Only considering the, you know, these facilities, but I don't know how much, if an issue is going to be to have a, say if they had a bus coming from, say, Southbridge, you know, to deliver employees to the facility. Is that really an issue because they're dropping them off, you know, on the interior of the property, nothing to really affect the road? You know, we probably kind of would rather see that happen and take a few cars off the road.
Yeah,
So would it be, maybe we just leave that one well enough alone?
yeah, leave it alone for the time being. Then when you talk about the railroad, the only railroad access in town would be at Charlton Depot. The old, back in the day when they had that.
Right.
Stuff there. But who knows, they might even increase, getting back to the bus, WRTA might increase buses considering employment coming to town with 2 proposed facilities the size that they are in the employee demand.
Right.
That's a great point.
I don't think that the bus goes past 169 west on 20.
No, that's what I was told. Somebody had asked about that.
So they might increase, WRTA might increase, maybe also put another bus on, or change, or add to the route. I don't know, but it makes sense, Randy, where they would pull into the facility possibly, but I don't think, I mean, they might even stop at the bottom of the road, who knows? I don't know.
I would think, or I would offer that a bus stop or a bus station is different than a terminal, though, you know.
Right, well, that's what I was thinking as well, that if it was WRCA, but I would almost think that they would pull up to the entrance of the building or something, because they gotta, stopping on the side of 20, they gotta turn around someplace, so they might actually pull into the facility and drop whoever off.
And that's outside of this. It's not a bus terminal, then it's just a bus stop.
Yeah, really, bus stop,
Yeah.
I just leave it alone.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's no Greyhound stations in Charlton.
Not yet.
But the next one, if you look at I guess what we are, the next page was the new automobile sales. That was one, and that actually where it's in the RSC, which
Are we combining that with CB?
what's that?
We combine the RSC with the CB zone since the definitions are so close? Or am I wrong?
We were gonna do that. I thought that was at the beginning of the whole conversation we had. We're kind
Yeah.
of blending that zone together.
Yeah.
Then it would make sense, but yeah, there are locations where it could be done. If somebody wanted to do it with, like, it's a P, so it would be a site plan. It's just not a yes.
We're missing Dawn because Dawn was very careful about keeping those two consistent through all this review. We'll have to make sure
Yeah.
that. Good point, Ross.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to click with me. So I'm just, I was looking, I'm like, all right, where in town is RSE? It's majority down Charlton City. And then he's like, yeah, we matched it because the definitions are so close. It clicked in my head.
Maybe you can make a note of that, Randy, just, we're gonna, as we go through this, make sure those two line up being the same. We can give Don some homework.
I do have a question. I apologize if this has been asked and answered.
Yeah.
Why do we distinguish between new and used automobiles? Because most car dealers who sell new also sell used and vice versa. Can't we combine the category considering they have the exact same permitting?
Yeah, I mean, a car dealer is a car dealer. When it comes to getting your car dealer's license, I don't think the state or the town or anyone specifies whether it's new cars or used cars.
No, and good luck getting a new car right now.
So,
But
yeah, and I mean, they're both the only difference is new and used, so it should say new and used. And keep it
exactly.
one category. So we eliminate H and just combine G together. Or
I don't know
Unless
if
someone
there's two
says
different
differently.
licenses there, Randy.
there is a different license for new and used.
I think there's a used or a, I don't know why I know.
I don't think there is though, because I think, because if you look at any car dealer, I don't know of any dealer that only has brand new cars. It's a new and used, it's a car dealer's license, and it goes by the number of cars on the lot.
Yeah, but a used cars dealer does not sell new cars.
That's fair. I guess my question is, and I apologize if I seem argumentative, I don't mean to at all. What's the downside to combining the category if you're going to fall into one of them?
I mean, would it matter? Like if we had a site plan of somebody coming in selling new cars versus used cars? From
Well, like it's a Gary
planning
Jackson
board-
Motors who's all used versus a Lundgren Honda, which is new and used.
I just think that, and I might be wrong, I think they're two different permits. That's the only thing I can see, so.
Okay, fair
I'll
enough.
look into that to see
If it's not two different
License.
permits, then that's fine, you know, but.
I'll get some clarification on it. There's some difference between the two.
Yeah, Randy, looking at the, how, letter M there, for the electric distribution stations and substations, only, 'cause I got an email. I think my brother forwarded to me about how he got one from National Grid and they're looking into putting in more substations to handle the solar, just in different areas. And who knows if they'd want to put one in town here. But just as, I know it's a special permit pretty much in every zone except for the village district. That's pretty much fine, right?
Yeah, I think it should be because, and I know it's become the latest thing in particular where we have three-phase power and everything. It's, we're a hot spot for it.
Yeah. I guess don't be surprised if you see one in the future.
Right.
I think they're conducting a study now to see where
Well, and that's one of the things, these battery storage facilities where they're not part of a grid, solar facility, but that's basically what they are, is a electric distribution station, you know, where they're just gonna have a bunch of batteries for storage that National Grid can just pull off them anytime they want, that aren't necessarily connected with a particular solar field. So they would fall into that category. So we've already had inquiries about that already. So, but we'll see them sooner than later.
And I stand corrected. To John's point, there's a dealer's license and a salesperson's license. So it is two different licenses that one must get to sell used cars versus new cars. So I apologize, John. I was mistaken.
There's no worries, Alicia. Because I know we have one at work and it's a different license, so I didn't mean to.
We'll just keep them separate. I mean, they both follow the same guidelines, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And looking further down the list, there's an automobile or truck repair garage. It also has the same permitting, nose and permits required. So luckily it follows the sales and used car sales. Because how would you define, what is this? Is it a used car entity, a new car entity, or is it a service repair garage entity? It's like all three of these things in one, or it could be. I guess there's no question there. It's just an observation. There's another section further down that just calls out a automobile repair garage. Can we move that? Why is that in a different section? Let's see, it's industrial. I guess it's industrial and warehouse section.
It would make sense for it to be under the other one because particularly where, I can see some of these other uses staying under here, but automotive and truck repair, it really should be with the car dealer section. So, it's a little more user friendly to be put into the other category for.
If we're moving things around, I don't know. Unless I'm missing something. Like this what we're looking at now, this new automobile sales, used automobile sales, G and H is under communications, transportation, and public utilities. I see. So it's a transportation category. Number 6.
Yeah, I mean, automobile and truck repair is part of transportation. I understand why they might have an industrial use, but it's still more likely to be found if somebody was looking in transportation.
Yeah. That would be my user-friendly suggestion. Also, maybe move it up to section 6, that automobile truck repair garage.
Okay.
I think on the next page,
Further
you have
down.
a couple, are we still on the?
Are you under taxi and limousine services?
Yeah, there's
that page.
Yeah, I gotta straighten out the RSE and CB on this permitted And he commented on those two are not in line, the RSE and the CB.
I kind of agree that it should be at least a Y in the MB. And not, I mean, it should be a P in the MB and not a Y.
Yes.
Yeah. Should that it be a P in the community business to match the RSE so they stay in line? Or should it just be a Y in RSE? Should it?
Which one are you looking at?
The taxi limousine service.
Oh,
John's
and
point that the RSE and CB don't match in both letters, Q and P.
I think it actually should be. I mean, it's parking and everything. If you have like a bunch of taxis, you got to put them someplace, you know. So maybe they should be P as well.
Yeah. So then even if you go to the RSC, we can you have a taxi limousine with has 4 more vehicles. RSC was a no, and community business was a P. So should the no in RSC be a P?
So make the no a P.
Yeah, does that make sense? John, Bill,
Yeah.
Alicia?
Absolutely.
I see that. Yeah.
Okay.
The last one, see, they made a comment on it, and I don't know how. I mean, this is water tanks for public water systems. I don't know how involved we want to get to this as far as there's basically saying it's a Y in any district. So it wouldn't require any type of approval from the board.
Well, you wouldn't, if you had some open space behind your house and then the town decides to put a tank there, we're saying, okay, go ahead. You know, that's some infrastructure going up between an easement and I know we all want water and such, but you know, at what, and I know there's only certain areas where tanks can be placed and so not to limit the ability of the water and sewer guys to, the water guys to accurately determine where this tank is going to be. I guess it probably, there's a tank coming in the near future, I would think, if those wells get online. I'm sure they'd like to put a tank somewhere for some storage.
Right. Well, my concern is like, if you're thinking about it from, you know, the other residents of the town, it's kind of, it basically saying in this perspective, the town can do whatever it wants, but you know, without a site plan or anything. I mean, even if the Water and Sewer Commission comes to the planning board with a site plan, it's not like they pay for it or anything, and they would have to do up plans for to show that they meet these requirements anyway. So we wouldn't be, except for going through the public hearing process, we wouldn't be asking much more of them, but it might be more appropriate just to have them, you know, just get a site plan approval for it.
Yeah.
The pump station and everything, I think, are very, you know, low key, but a tank, you know, depending on how tall it is, it might be intrusive.
Taking one for the team.
Yeah.
Put it in the backyard.
Yeah. Do you think that they should be just P across the board versus Y, or
I
in
would think
certain
so.
zones a Y and certain P, or just P
Straight
across the board?
All Ps.
All
Oh,
Ps.
okay. Actually, let's see.
Do we not have a fuel storage called out here? I'm looking for, I see, what was it, the energy storage, which is kind of vague. There's an energy storage on page 12 of this document V.
No, I thought we do have some place where we have,
Fuel and fuel oil or something.
I don't know if we went by it already, but I thought that we did have a place where we actually address that.
There's a gas and gasoline transmission facility.
Transmission facility,
Yeah,
not a retail gasoline station.
Well, I guess there are oil dealers and stations, which is just below gasoline service stations. I don't know if that's quite it.
Okay, it's in here somewhere. I missed it.
It's under where am I?
number 5, business uses letters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do have one in that. I think that's a category that it falls under, the Nichols Charlton Oil.
Right. I'm sorry, which letter is it? It's 5.
5. Had it. Uh, 5. Oh,
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Oil dealers and stations.
Dealers and station. And we mean storage facility there, right?
right. It would be. I mean, typically that's part of the use for a fuel oil dealers. They have storage at the facility.
Right, right. So then what is an energy storage?
That I think is more in line with the batteries, which typically for to go along with a solar field, or actually this is part of where they did the whole with Lori Degnan rewriting the solar bylaws. Is the intent was to only allow these battery storage facilities in the IG or the BEP zone.
Aren't there several in the our agricultural zones now? There's
There
gotta
were
be.
there were a couple of these are standalone energy storage, and when the ones that were put in was part of the solar facilities, they were part of the solar facility, the existing solar facility, so they're an accessory use to the solar facility.
So this is just,
This is
can't plop a battery down and
right.
and put it in.
That's
Right.
like if
Yeah, no one like wow. That's gonna be interesting with this, you know, this battery stuff is gonna go crazy with residential pretty soon. You know,
Yeah.
We've got no for residential people. They can't put any type of battery. Is that what I'm reading here on that?
Yeah, yeah, we should talk about a definition that needs to be sorted
Yeah.
out. You know, I mean,
Maybe
natural gas
commercial,
above, that is energy, you know, so.
commercial versus residential or something, we get a way to break it down. Because, yeah, that'll become a bigger issue as time goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, we might want to just highlight that to get a definition around that.
Yeah, I made a note. I'm gonna try to look into that, see how it's handled, or determine a way that we can handle it. Because you obviously don't want to, somebody that has energy storage for their home, you don't want to prevent them from doing that.
Yeah, and then, you know, I see, and then up above, it's kind of restrictive. We have natural gas distribution station. What about a propane gas? This, you know, what does that fall into? You know, and that just says a distribution station, not necessarily storage of natural gas.
Maybe we can amend that to add natural gas and propane without, you know, just lumping the two together without, you know, overcomplicating it.
Yeah. Do we want to make it include storage, you know, natural gas, propane storage, distribution, substation?
I think you should, because I mean, if the LNG facility that we have, you know, being proposed here in town, part of it is they're having a 2 million, you know, gallon
Right.
storage tank, which is a lot.
The primary thing, yeah,
Right.
the storage. Yeah, and for S, maybe we include propane, you know, a propane station as well. Natural gas and or propane distribution, storage, substation, piping, you know.
This is another one that's interesting because Howlett Lumber, which I realize is now Rainford we're in, used to do propane. You could fill your tanks there and they were in the village district. And yet on this chart, it's a no. But up until they closed, they were one of the big places to go for propane.
I wonder if they were
Yeah.
grandfathered, Alicia, with, had they been there before you?
Oh, absolutely. They were well grandfathered over. The village district came about after most of the places in the village district actually were established.
I mean, what's the typical storage propane tank that's used for a single family home when somebody's running off propane? Is it 1,000 or is it bigger than that?
For a house, like for
Yeah.
heat and stuff, you can do a 500, or you can do the 250s outside. A 500 would be underground, 1,000 would be underground.
1,000
maybe-
max, though, probably.
Right, so I'm thinking if you put a number on over so many gallons, and then somebody like Howlett Lumber wouldn't be, you know, a small time place like that wouldn't be affected, but you know, this is for those large storage and distribution facilities that you're really more worried about. So we could just pick a what we thought would be an appropriate number of over so many gallons. That's why I just didn't want to get in. I want to make sure we stay away from what would ever be for typical single family home or anything like that. So say over 2,500, over 5,000, you know, whatever thinks appropriate for the board.
I know I got a bottle on my house, but I'm not quite sure what the bottles with people fill it, you know, they fill like down at Abashan, or I think Arnie's had, well, not Arnie's, the guy that used to be in Arnie's there right at the corner of Route 20 has a bottle, a gas bottle there to fill people up with.
Right. That's what they're typically running off a 1,000-gallon tank.
Okay, that's the size
So
of
that's
that.
why I don't want to hurt people like them.
Yeah.
It's more from larger commercial people.
Yep.
So if we just pick a number that's a little larger than what the typical small time business user would use, whether it be like 2,500 gallons or whatever.
Are we thinking about Charlton Oil that has the propane tanks on
Yeah,
Route 20?
Yeah, theirs are huge. I don't know what the size is, but they're big.
Right, and then they have the trucks there that move that stuff. They're trucks, but they don't look like the regular tankers. They're like not box trucks, but they're like trailers almost.
Right.
But they move the LNG. And he has them, you know, they park over there. And plus he does, Charlton Oil delivers propane and everything in his big storage tanks. We don't want to hurt him. He's already there.
Yeah,
It'd all be pre-existing non-conforming anyway if we changed it.
yeah. So what Ralph is doing, it wouldn't affect him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess to put a max at 2,000 gallons, you know, would not hurt the little guy that fills the homeowner gas grill or for the heater or whatnot, whatever
Right.
people are using their propane for.
Either that or cooking.
Correct, exactly. All right.
So when you get to the next one, the automobile and truck repair garage, we already talked about that's going to be combined with CB, but since the RSC is a P right now and the CB is a P, we don't really have to make any changes there. As Ron had made a comment there on the side.
Yeah.
And I think that same goes for the land and water recreation they highlighted. Well, wait a minute, what do you do here? No, yeah, because it would be the same as the CB zone, so if they're combined.
The other one that doesn't match is under number 7, industrial and warehouse uses. A, light manufacturing. The REC and the CB don't match.
All right, so you want to switch it to a P in CB to match?
Where are you, Gene?
Item 7 under industrial and warehouse, letter A, light manufacturing establishments.
Page 200:26.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. If we're gonna make the CB, I mean, the combined will be a P.
Yeah, so it's because the use is storage of goods and materials. Shall not be permitted on any lot except in appropriate enclosures. So what is that, light manufacturing storage building?
Storage of goods and materials.
Yeah.
I also wanted to question the research and development. Should we put a limit on how big those offices under number 7, section E as in Edward can be? Because you could have an EMC size building that's just for research and development. And now we're permitting it in almost every single zone. Whereas we might want to limit it or break out that category based on size.
That's probably a good idea because you could get a large, research facility of, a couple 100,000 square feet versus a 50,000 or 20,000 square foot building.
Exactly my thought.
And that
Why
all,
do we, oh, excuse me, Randy. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So why are we not allowing biotech or fiber optics or medical research in the industrial general zone?
I don't know. I think it should be at least a special permit,
Yeah.
like
Great
it is
question.
the DP loan. There's no reason why not to. I mean, because technically, isn't that what Incom does? Is fiber optics, and they're in the IG zone.
Exactly right.
So it would make sense to at least make them special permit, not a no. But if, in reference to Alicia's point, if we kept it, we picked a square footage, say similar to those retail establishments, we picked under a certain square feet, they would be with a P, and then it's over a certain amount of square footage, it'd be an SP for the scientific research or office executive.
I agree with that, Randy.
Do you have a particular number that would, like, of size of facility? We could go with the same 20,000 number that we did on the retail, and anything over 20,000 or over would be an SP.
Keep it consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
To Alicia's point, though, like biotechnology, like you can't even define that. Like, what is bio? It's the same as medical research and development.
I know, that's
And a fiber optic facilities, yeah, they should be. I mean, just a yes in IG, like,
Yeah.
of course, that's what they're there for. That's what IG is for. Do we want to break these down? What was the intent here? Like, biotechnology is messy or dangerous. You're going to let the virus out of the box or something. What's the intent?
No, honestly, I don't know what the intent was to make them SP, but the one thing with even with the existing building height changes, not including the 110-foot one, but with the previous ones that are 50, is still, if these facilities got to a larger size, they would be before the board with a special permit. If they were less than that size, it would be a site plan approval. Would it be better off to make these a P in these two zones versus an SP? Then,
Yeah.
I mean, site plan, you still have to look at parking, traffic, and everything, but you can't. Why might be dangerous just because you have so many other issues to deal with. Making sure that, you know, it's appropriate from a traffic standpoint and everything else. But a simple site plan approval is much easier to deal with than a special permit.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree with that.
These
We'll
are the types
change
of
them to Ps,
businesses
both
we want.
those to Ps.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, back to the definition, like, why are we calling out fiber optic facilities and biotechnology? Is just an industrial use, a manufacturing use. Even calling out medical research and development versus scientific research and development further, you know, those are the same things. You know, medical is not, but scientific research it is. I don't even think you could argue which is which, you know.
I would think you have a medical research facility there on 31, right? On the border, right? Of Charlton
Enzyme.
and Genzyme, I would think, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's a no on this, I would believe.
Yeah.
I think it fell under scientific research,
Science.
but it came under because they're genetically making these with the goats and then across the street with the rabbits.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Pete, I agree with the Ps. That works with the rest of the board. And those three, B, C, and D.
I mean, can we get rid of B, C, and D? You know, just in terms of simplification, again, they're just in, you know, manufacturing uses.
I would agree with that. It
It's
seems kind of
more-
silly to categorize them differently.
More based on, like you were saying, Randy, the size of the building itself, not what's inside the building.
We don't have definitions on any of that, do we? I mean, if we can't define it to somebody who's applying, why is it there?
Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing, it makes it, you know, for speaking for Kurt, it does make his life easier to determine what can be done under that definition versus having the definition too broad. I mean, I agree, like medical research and development probably could be added, medical or scientific research. You know, I
There
could,
again,
I'm sorry.
well, there again, under scientific or research, you have the word laboratories. That doesn't appear under any of the other ones.
Right.
You're using
Right.
facilities.
And medical research would definitely have laboratories in it. You know?
Seems like
Biotech would have laboratories in it.
seems like they were just trying to get a handle on, they didn't want to let anything go. They wanted to know what was going in these light manufacturing by just calling out these. I don't know why they picked these three instead of nuclear fission or anything else, you know.
Right. And virus studies or something. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Well, I could ask,
Ask Kurt on that.
I'll ask Kurt on that to see if he has any opinion on why it couldn't just be eliminated, B, C, and D, and incorporate it into, say, the bottom two.
Can you just follow up with the new guy too, to see why those are in, if they're in other towns?
Yeah. So we can get some feedback if somebody else is looking at it from a different perspective than we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
being 9 o'clock, what do you guys want to do? You want to keep going? You want to wrap it up?
I mean, there weren't any comments made after that, and I honestly,
Yeah.
with the exception of, unless Kurt had anything, I don't think there's anything that's really significant after where we just ended.
The only thing is there was a lot of stuff that we picked up on that Ron did not because there were inconsistencies. I'd like to give this one last look. I'd like to not do it tonight selfishly because Wednesday is my super early morning. But I'd love to put this on the agenda one last time, have everyone take one last look so that comments can be made and Jean and John and Bill have all made awesome recommendations based on things that Ron didn't even pick up on. No offense against Ron. My recommendation, speaking for me, is to wrap up tonight, put this on the agenda one last time before giving a final recommendation.
Well, that's a good idea, and I can do this actually for our next meeting while it's still kind of fresh, because we have these big applications coming, so now would be a good time. Our next meeting is probably going to be a little light, so it'd be a good time to just give it one final once over. And then also
Very good.
give Dawn a chance to comment on it as well. Get some of
Yes.
these- yeah. So I will amend these based on what I am. I'm going to send, try to get some answers on some of the questions we have tonight. And then I'll send them out to everybody. And then we'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting to hopefully give it more or less a final once over or make any last amendments that we think might be necessary.
Sounds great.
That sounds great.
All right, Randy, did you have anything else?
Actually, just for the A&Rs, we still need the signatures for this year. So Ross and Bill and Dawn too, but if you just stop by the planning board office sometime to just put your signatures on there so we can submit them to the registry. And also, because we're being asked more and more, is the board's opinion on having in-person meetings. Do you want to just stay with this for now? I mean, our next meeting, we don't really have anything public going on, so it might be just as simple as to do it this way, but July is when we're going to start getting the bigger applications. And I mean, it's completely up to the board. We can do it completely in person. We can do it hybrid. We can keep it Zoom. It's up to the
This
board.
actually came up last night and I talked to Andrew about it via the Charlton EDC, and he's going to ask for an extension on the ability to stay Zoom there, since they're all recorded and the public can join, because so many people are actually enjoying, myself totally included, being able to do this via Zoom, because then it's easier for those of us with kids who can get dinner on the table and fly into the meeting 2 minutes late because they threw dinner on the table and were able to clean up. But I know a lot of the boards are going to continue via Zoom. Speaking only for myself, I love Zoom, but I don't want to speak for anyone else.
But the one upside to doing it Zoom, particularly when you have somebody like Dawn on board, but even with applicants, is that we can share the screens so that, everybody can see what's going on. Which sometimes when you're doing it, even an in-person meeting, it's a little harder to do. So, I mean, I'm here no matter what. So to me, either way. But I know there's been discussion about keeping everything Zoom, but I don't know where it's at.
Oh, there could be a hybrid of some type, in person and people. I like this, and I think there's some movement to having Charlie sign some type of bill to say that it's legal to run it, some type of hybrid operations.
Right, there's talk about it. The problem too with having the in-person meetings is, I mean, it has to be on the honor system that people are vaccinated. They say, well, people have to be vaccinated, but you can't ask them. I mean, you can ask, say, are you vaccinated? But you can't even ask them. So
No.
it's the
No.
honor system. Yeah.
And it's funny because TJ Maxx and Marshalls are requiring masks. They actually have a mask police at the door. I was at Trader Joe's today And most of the store had masks on, but you didn't have to. BJ's was the same, Whole Foods was the same. So that's why they're thinking that just to stay Zoom for a while might actually be better for people, because I know I'm fully vaccinated, but at the credit union, we have to let you in no matter what. And I happen to know a couple different people that have been very vocal on Facebook about being anti-vax, but they're coming in without masks, and that's just the way it is. So for the town boards, especially the people that are volunteering, or, you know, people like us, they're saying it might be safer to stay remote or hybrid. If you feel okay going in, you can go in, but they'll allow the remote option, as the hybrid option, excuse me, as well.
Well, I guess for now, for the June 16th meeting, we'll plan on do it Zoom and then go from there. Maybe they'll have a better answer by then.
All
And
right.
again, I apologize if my feelings are putting anyone else, if you all would rather be in person and I'm just being lazy being in my living room. But I have to say, I love this option.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. All right, that sounds great.
Randy, one quick question. Have you heard anything on the LNG project? What's happening on that?
No,
I haven't heard anything. Okay,
yeah, we've heard nothing.
nothing. Okay,
The only thing I heard was, the last I heard from them was that they had submitted some information, and then they were accused about that their information was not correct, particularly with Millennium, and so they had some issues that they had to address, but I don't know if that's going to change things or not. But
okay. Just curious.
And is VGG still in the court system? I get asked about that on a pretty regular
yes,
basis.
they're
I thought
actually,
so.
yeah,
They're doing rescheduling hearings and depositions. I just got an email today about that.
All right.
yes,
Thank you.
litigation.
All right, does anyone have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, give a second.
Have a good night.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor, Gene Vincent,
Aye.
John Smith.
Aye.
Lisa's really ready to go.
Aye.
Alicia. Smith, yeah.
Aye.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks for.
Thank you for
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.